Well, we're closely approaching the election season. Of course, a lot of candidates have already filed with the Public Disclosure Commission for the upcoming August primary. Among them, running for a seat on the Chelan County Board of Commissioners, representing District 2, is Bob Bugert, former Executive Director of the Chelan Douglas Land Trust.
That's correct.
Well, my goodness, you're throwing your hat into the ring, Bob. This came as kind of a surprise to me when I heard about it.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah, well, it was after a tremendous amount of personal reflection, Steve, and discussions with my family and friends and community members. And so it is something that I'm not taking lightly, that's for sure. That is something I'm very committed to. And, you know, it really is something that I knew when I was stepping down from the Land Trust, I wanted to do something that continued my opportunity for community service. And I looked at a lot of options. I had that luxury to be able to really explore within the community what I could do. You know, work for another organization that does community service, do work on a lot of boards of directors, because there's always the need for that as far as community service. But it really kept coming back down to public service and working for the commission. I think that would be a tremendous honor and privilege to be able to do so.
Well, this is an opportunity for our viewers on NCW Live Channel to meet Bob Bugert. I know that prior to your hiring at the Land Trust, I was not familiar, we were not acquainted. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and
certainly can.
How you got to the point where you are now.
Yeah, so Carolyn and I, my wife and I, we're close to 40 years of marriage now. We've lived in Chelan, in Wenatchee, for about 27 years. We raised our 3 sons, Tom, Bill, and Alex here. So we went through the public school process and really became quite involved in the community through that. My degree, I have natural resource background. I have a master's degree in fishery science and a bachelor's degree in wildlife science from Washington State University and the University of Idaho. I worked for about 10 years for the State Department of Fish and Wildlife, and then 10 years for then Governor Locke and Governor Gregoire as a policy advisor in the governor's office related to natural resource issues, specifically focused on salmon, because at that time, salmon were being listed under the Endangered Species Act. And my role within that employment was to really work with local governments, primarily county commissioners, to be able to respond proactively to the pending listing under the Endangered Species Act. It was very difficult work, but very rewarding work. And at the time, I had the privilege of knowing every commissioner from every county in eastern Washington. And had a good working relationship with them. So I really had a very good understanding about what a county commission can and cannot do, and how we can really work with them to be able to maintain their quality of life, not to have a heavy regulatory burden on those counties, so that they can really approach it well. And it really was a very successful initiative that the governor's office had. And us here locally, we had very strong engagement from the commissioners of Chelan, Douglas, and Okanagan counties, Steve, to form what's called the Upper Columbia Salmon Recovery Board.
Yes.
And that's been a very successful venture that really is grassroots approach to some of our natural resource issues. And the whole concept, Steve, is to bring people together to hear the concerns, hear the issues, and to come up with a collaborative, proactive approach.
I've noticed that that the Chelan County Commissioners have really taken that concept to heart.
They have,
especially with many of the working groups that they've developed over the last few years, in the Stemilt Basin, the icicle, those types of things. And I would guess that you would agree that this is the best approach to setting policy.
Yeah, I firmly believe that, Steve. I really do believe that a good county commissioner needs to be a good listener and be able to really reach out and hear from stakeholders, hear from all the jurisdictions within that area, and to see what the issues are, to work then with our partners at the state and federal level to really come up with approaches that work.